Good morning, Geauga, Lake, Northeast Ohio, and the rest of the world. You've got Voice of Geauga this Wednesday morning with me, Jonathan Broadbent. We've got Skip Claypool joining us from the road, and we've got Cole Cornell. Bear with me a second here. I am getting my screens set up. Cole actually is not just a returning guest. Cole actually this morning is a host. So I want to pause to interject a perspective. And one of the goals that we have for Voice of Geauga, some of the original early vision for Voice of Geauga included having lots of people on from the community, like Cole Cornell. If you missed that earlier episode, I'm going to include a link on Facebook and social media so you can go back and rewatch and get the introduction to Cole Cornell. But I want to give the Cliff's Notes version today. Cole is the head of Young Republicans in Geauga County. So he is the face and future of the Republican Party and a first-time guest. So one of the original concepts for Voice of Geauga, when a group of us concerned citizens got together and started talking about ways to positively impact our community. And, you know, the old adage, don't Cuyahoga our Geauga. We had this vision for kind of a rolling roster of lots of different people from the community coming on and acting as host. So it sort of fell into a bit of a routine with Skip Claypool and myself being and serving as Voice of Geauga. By the way, in a moment, I'll get to an explanation for why Skip is on the road this morning. He touched on it yesterday, but I do want to drill down a little bit more on what to expect out of today in Columbus. But Cole Cornell, I hope, is a glimpse of what's yet to come on Voice of Geauga. I'd love to have people. There's been discussion of former County Commissioner Tim Lennon. I think that he would make a great host of Voice of Geauga. Frank Kavanaugh, actually, tomorrow and Friday, will be returning, not as a guest, but as a host of Voice of Geauga. So hopefully that sets the stage appropriately. But just drilling down for a moment on two kind of housekeeping notes. Skip is on the road today to head down to a committee meeting having to do with Metropolitan Planning Organizations, or MPO for short. These MPO, there are 17 of them in the state of Ohio. I make the argument that the most intrusive and abusive of all of them, in fact, perhaps one of the most abusive and sprawling of all MPOs in the country, is one that's based out of Cleveland called the Northeast Ohio Area-Wide Coordinating Agency, or NOACA for short. You've heard Skip bring it up before. It's kind of a hot button topic for Skip. Today, there is some proposed legislation. It's House Bill 445 that would rein that in quite a bit. It would put some guardrails up and do things to protect counties like Geauga, Lake, Medina, and Lorain. So let's all put in a prayer and hope for success in that meeting today. Skip is going to Columbus. He's on the road to provide proponent testimony. That means that he is for this bill. That's House Bill, I almost said 645. It's 445. So Skip, let's test your audio. How are you doing on the road? And by all means, please drive safely while you talk to us.
I'm driving along very smoothly, going down 271, watching out for the state out of control, because there are a lot of them on 271, and I always tend to speed a little bit. I'm going to chime in and welcome Cole to the show as a host. As Jonathan said, we'd always plan to get more people involved. If you're listening and you want to be a host, reach out to us, voiceofgeauga@gmail.com. We'd like to get more voices, more opinions, more thoughts, and so forth into the discussion. But on to NOACA for a second and the purpose of this meeting. This is a perfect example of how dysfunctional our legislative group is. By the way, Lake County, Lorain, and Geauga County, all of the commissioners from each of these counties could step up and rein in the misuse or abuse of NOACA. They choose not to. They just are weak-kneed and won't do it. Yep. So thank you, Mike Davila, state representative from Strongsville, our state representative in Republicans didn't do it. You stepped up, created legislation, as Jonathan said, to put some guardrails around NOACA to limit the supermajority that Cleveland has. So I'm going to make testimony today. They invited me and one other guy, John Kalis, who's been on our program, to come down, and we're their premier testifiers, and so we're going to make some testimony today. We were originally only given 5 minutes. I could do 2 hours on MPOs, but we were given 5 minutes. Now I hear they've limited us to 3 minutes. This is why I say the state legislature is a bit dysfunctional. There's all this very important legislation which we should be spending a concerted amount of effort and time on, discussing it, debating it, understanding it, and they want to rush through and give everybody 3 minutes. So I'm very disappointed in that, but I welcome the opportunity to be able to testify and present why this legislation will help in reining in a situation that harms Geauga County and to a lesser degree Lake County, Lorain, and Medina. And so I'm looking at that opportunity. We're going to see how it plays out. I'll report back tomorrow on how everything went. But it's so important
report.
That we all get engaged and we are doing things that help to manage the government we've got, which oftentimes gets out of control itself. So.
Well put, and that's spot on. For anybody looking for more information on exactly what this means, if you missed yesterday's episode, you can go back on Facebook, Rumble, or YouTube and rewatch the episode. Skip gets into a bit more detail about what's happening today in this meeting. But I do want to focus on my co-host, Cole Cornell. Cole, welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
So just to give people a quick recap for anybody that didn't catch the episode where you joined us as a guest, that was back in, I think it was February, late February. Cole, tell us about, tell us about your background, your connections to Geauga, and the size and trajectory of the Young Republicans.
Yeah, well, I'm a lifelong resident in Geauga and grew up here, went to Sharon High School. I went to college down in Florida, and I came back here. And ever since then, I've been creating my businesses and working in Geauga and around, and I got involved into politics, and then I started working on campaigns and with government offices. And then I also took on the Geauga County Young Republicans last year. It was literally last May I took over to start reforming the group. And so since then, we've had meetings. We had for the first time, a booth at the GOP tent at the fair. And then we also did endorsements in last November's election. And then in this also upcoming election, we have been planning some event for the 250th. So I'm hoping to continue to get more young people involved and get some of these young Republicans to work on some of these campaigns, or at least have a say in what's going on in their community, get involved, and also maybe even do some testimony in Columbus or whatever, as far as they want to take it, because that's what we need. We need more younger voices to be heard. So.
Amen. Absolutely. That's a common topic that comes up on Ohio political news. And periodically, we've had occasion to have guests like GOP Josh. And so there's some other rock solid, spectacular young conservative Republicans entering into politics. Cole, I'm happy to let you know that you have your first fan. We've got a comment on Rumble from Ganny10. Great job, Cole. So
thanks, Ganny.
I imagine that that's going to grow significantly over time as people get to know you. I want to ask a question that relates to perspective and what the Republican Party actually means. And that is your perspective on the use of the term grassroots. And I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I do want to kick this around a little bit for today's discussion. By the way, if you're on Rumble, Facebook, or YouTube, feel free to join the conversation. You can also call in and join Cole Cornell and myself by dialing into WINT Radio at 440-946-9468. Join the conversation, and let's talk for a moment about what grassroots actually means. So, Cole, have you given that much thought? What does grassroots mean to you within the context of the Republican Party?
I mean, from the party perspective, I mean, grassroots is more of a bottom-up approach, and that is from everything local to friends and neighbors, and having what impact you can and get volunteers and anything. That there's a difference between a grassroots movement and something that the top-down approach is like from a party, and it's trying to say who you're going to vote for and control who that candidate is. And we saw a perfect example of that in 2024 election with Kamala being the person chosen for the people. The people did not choose her. So I think that's a perfect example of what is not grassroots versus what is grassroots, which is the people that, even for the first time, supported Trump when the party did not.
That's a great explanation. We're coming up on our first break. Remember to find us on Facebook, Rumble, and YouTube. Click that like button, share it out with your friends, and don't forget to click that bell to get notifications when episodes like this one begin. We're going to come back with more with Cole Cornell, my co-host, and more Voice of Geauga when we return.
Mics are off, mics are off.
All right, so periodically we'll get some man on the street from the road updates on Skip's progress as he heads down to Columbus. So if you're hearing us right now, you are listening to the podcast side. Right now we're on Radio Break on WINT Radio. This is Voice of Geauga on Facebook, Rumble, and YouTube. The podcast gives us opportunity to interact with the public. This is your chance to ask any questions you might have. I am personally monitoring Facebook and Rumble. I can bring up YouTube as well. Cole, I know that on your side, you're running the tech this morning to get our podcast up and running. Do you have the consolidated screen of comments? Are you able to pull the comments from social media?
Yeah, I have the chat screen here.
Okay. If you see anything.
Did Stu show up this morning? Did we get a poop emoji from Stu?
I have seen no poop emoji so far.
Stu, you're disappointing me. I know you're listening.
Mm-hmm.
You always count on Stu to lighten our day.
Yeah, that's one of Skip's new online buddies.
Mm-hmm.
Stu apparently is some Cleveland area liberal who likes to troll Skip, and Skip's getting a huge kick out of it. So, yeah. So if anything jumps out at you, Cole, as a question you want to drill down on and answer, you can bring it up.
30 seconds, 30 seconds.
Yeah, just bring it into the conversation. It's up to you how you want to introduce it. We've got a great comment here on Facebook that it's a good program. Thank you for that.
10 seconds, 10 seconds. Doesn't seem to be a shadow in the city.
Welcome back to Voice of Geauga with Cole Cornell, myself, Jonathan Broadbent, and Skip Claypool is man on the street today. Actually, a little more distance than usual. Typically, when Skip plays man on the street, he's headed over to the administration building on Ravenwood. Skip actually is headed down to Columbus to provide testimony in favor of House Bill 445, in case you missed any of the earlier program. Before we went to break, we were talking about grassroots and what that means. And there can be a little butting of the head, some friction within the Republican Party about grassroots versus, and that this is me interjecting my personal perspective on the current use of the term. There has been, in my lifetime, a shift in the I won't say platform, but the approach that the Republican Party takes to conservative activism, to advocating for conservative values. It seems to me, and again, this is just my perspective from years of watching politics, that the Republican Party has come to mimic the Democrat Party in some regards. There is some more top-down push within the Republican Party of, I guess I'll call it kind of go along to get along. And there are some within the party, and it frustrates me when I see this because it doesn't really fit the Republican Party and our brand. But there is some push to ignore or silence the grassroots initiatives. And that I don't believe is an appropriate approach. I don't believe that top down will be successful. I don't believe that it will work within the Republican Party. There has to be a meeting of the minds where there's a feeling that the public is listened to. So I'm going to put that in a little different perspective. We often say the terms of the people, by the people, and for the people. If we are not taking that to heart and thinking in terms of acting as a party, the Republican Party acting in the interests of we the people, what do we have? We don't actually have a republic. We have more of a top-down type of structure. So does that gel? Does that comport with what you were saying, Cole?
Yeah, I mean, it exactly does. And also, I mean, I've seen all the grassroots efforts and different ways that people go about it. I mean, I've been working on campaigns now locally and around the state for the last 6.5 years. So I've seen what that is versus the top-down approach. And just this past election, right here in Geauga, I worked on the three campaigns that won. So it was quite a feeling, especially when you see that grassroots efforts and then you see success. It really impacts you.
Absolutely. So we've got a couple of comments here. Ganny 10. Oh, I guess Ganny 10 may have been a fan of yours from before the show, even. It says here, Cole was very active in this past primary. So Ganny was commenting on that just as you were making your comments. There's another comment from Gardens of CH. Seems like Geauga Republican Party is not very active. For example, getting yard signs and basic candidate information. He or she is asking, will you be a contact person? So that brings up a good question. What's your vision for yourself going forward, Cole?
I mean, I would like to be part of the party, especially when it comes to communications. I've talked to a couple other Central Committee members about this, and we do have members in the GOP here in Geauga that are very concerned about outreach and are worried about communicating to Republican voters, and they have talked to me about this. And that's what my business does. I mean, I work with government offices, organizations, and election campaigns with outreach. So I would love to be able to help with that with the GOP. So there are some discussions in that as to what's happening right now. I am not a Central Committee member, so I don't have any say in that. But I do see myself very involved, and then on the side of being involved in the party and maybe a position or something, I think we'll see that in the future as well.
So let me comment on that real quick, Cole, and to the audience. Yeah, there's a central committee. We have a meeting tonight, actually. It's a reorganization meeting. So we elect the chairman, vice chair, so on and so forth. But to all the people out there listening, you have a representative. These representatives get elected. They have to fill out a petition, they have to run, and they get elected. I was elected to the Central Committee in my precinct. And so our citizens that are in our precincts have every right to reach out to your representative and comment and try to influence the representatives and thereby the Central Committee on things they're doing. I'm in Cole's camp. I don't think our central committee, it's pretty dysfunctional. It does a lot of internal glad handing and, self-serving kinds of things. But I know there's an objective on many to do more outreach to the public and to get more input. And I would applaud everybody to do that. So.
Well, Cole's comments bring up a good point that I want to interject once again. If you are on social media, if you find the Facebook Geauga County GOP group, please be aware that there are actually two groups. And I'm just going to briefly unpack that. This has been a frustration of not only mine, but many other people in Geauga County. There is a Facebook Geauga County GOP group that was formed and built up over time by somebody who used to be involved in the Republican Party. Unfortunately, I think there was some bad blood, some people arguing and fighting over who controlled that. And at this point, the Republican Party of Geauga County does not control the larger of those two groups on Facebook. So you'll find a small one that has, I want to say, 150 or 200-ish followers. I really hope that grows over time and somebody like Cole, or lots of people like Cole, step in and really start to do a lot more with social media and messaging and communicating with the public about what the Republican Party is doing in the county. I think that's mission critical going forward. But there is that unfortunate group, and it is still being run and administered. To the best of my knowledge, it's being run by a person who's no longer even in Ohio. So that is an unfortunate thing, just to comment. If you see questionable stuff posted on Facebook, that could be the culprit right there. But getting back to a vision for the future for social media, and most specifically bringing in the next generation of young Republicans, Cole, tell us about how often and consistently do you meet as a group in Geauga County, and how can people get involved? Let's say you've got some 20-something, hears this show and wonders how they can get a hold of Cole Cornell and get involved in the Republican Party.
Yeah, so if someone wants to get involved, or maybe you know somebody that would like to join the Geauga County Young Republicans, I mean, we are on Instagram and Facebook, so you can follow us on there. We are also working on a website right now to put up. I think the biggest struggle that I'm having with the YRs at the moment is that we don't have support from the state YRs. We don't have support from the regular YR groups. I'm not sure why that is, unless that is again a top-down approach against a bottom-up approach, where we are trying to have a younger grassroots thing going on here in Geauga. But I think maybe the rest of them in the YRs wanted to have more of a say over what we do. I don't know. I have reached out to them before and I have not heard much contact, or they get back to me much later and then they just say they like to see groups doing more things before they get involved. And it's like, well, I understand that, but as president of this group here in Geauga, I can't reach out more unless I have some assistance, and that assistance comes in the form of financial stuff as well. And I can't get donations if I don't have a charter and all of that to make us an official organization with the state YRs. So if we're not going to get that, then I've already thought about other ways that we can just do that ourselves and possibly take in donations and whatnot. Because I wanna actually be able to reach out and put a little money behind it and actually reach out to the young people here via social media and everything, just like I do with my businesses. And I would like to add, just when it comes to that whole social media thing with the page versus the group for the GOP, that is definitely something that has to be handled, because if that is constantly going to be a battle between those two pages, then that's not going to be good for the party, because it's going to cause confusion. Also on top of that, the one is a page, which was the old GOP's page, and then the other one is technically a group. So while having a group is not really a problem on Facebook, you have to join it. You can't just follow it and all that like a page. And a page can do ads, which a group cannot do. So I do think it's important that we get a handle on that and we get a new page for the GOP.
Absolutely. These are really important things. So I think that battle continues. We're coming up on our middle break. Joining us today as a co-host is Cole Cornell. If any part of this conversation interests you and you have questions, find us on Facebook, Rumble, or YouTube. We'll come back with more on the other side of the break.
Mics are off. Mics are off.
Yeah, so I'm going to comment on some of the comments I see on Rumble. Yeah, there's a group of us that are aware that the GOP website was hacked or hijacked. I'm choosing not to mention that over the air. I'm hopeful that that can get resolved without too many people finding that and word spreading, because it just looks bad,
Right.
especially given where it redirects to now. It's awful. I see you nodding, so you're aware of this, right, Cole?
Yeah, I mean the party needs a makeover. I mean,
Yep.
I like a lot of people in the party. There's no, not a lot of bad blood, but I just think, we need change when it comes to how we're reaching out to voters.
I absolutely agree. So I am among those.
There's a lack of technical.
Yeah.
There's a lack of technical knowledge on some of the leadership, and there's things that can be done. That Facebook page, we can actually file with Facebook to take control of that again. We just not gotten through the process to do that. That website was just done by a complete lack of understanding what they were doing from a technology standpoint. So again, something that needs to be shored up.
Yeah, I would love to help with getting all that situated. So I guess we'll see how the meeting goes tonight, and but I'm definitely available to talk about it if the party wants to.
Well, I think the party absolutely.
Can I join the Young Republican group? I'm only 75. I'm young compared to 95.
Hey, well,
very young at heart, Skip.
What, I was mentioning our financial troubles. I was thinking, we can not only can we have young Republicans, we can also have honorary young Republican members. So that could be someone of any age. But they just, join us with maybe a YR fee, and they can be part of the group.
Honorary members. There you go.
There you go.
Because, everyone's a young Republican at some point.
I'm young at heart.
You certainly are, Skip. So, yeah, so as I said, this is the 4-minute break, and then we'll come back. One thing that I want to lead back in with, I'm going to make sure to mention our sponsors for this episode. But there's just a side note, and I want to open it up for your comments on data centers, because they're a hot button topic right now. There's a really good article in the Ohio Register from Jeff Skinner, who's been a frequent guest on Voice of Geauga, pertaining to Perry. And it turns out that Perry Village officials apparently have no documents. There's no environmental study, no economic impact, nothing. So they signed up, what is this, a multi-million-dollar deal on public land, and apparently in an information, 8.4 million.
30 seconds, 30 seconds.
And apparently the Perry Village officials have done nothing to investigate and research. There are no documents that they're turning over to the public related to that. How ridiculous is that?
It's very ridiculous. I mean,
10 seconds, 10 seconds.
Welcome back to Voice of Geauga with Cole Cornell, myself, Jonathan Broadbent, and Skip Claypool is on the road, headed to Columbus this morning. So it periodically joins us via phone call. Please drive safely as you do so, Skip. A few things. I want to recognize our sponsors of today's episode. We've got the Chardon VFW, Middlefield VFW, and the Chardon and Newberry American Legion. Just quickly interjecting, because this relates to
and anonymous, Jonathan. We don't miss our anonymous contributor.
We have an anonymous contributor who is sponsoring this week of Voice of Geauga on air. Very good point. Thank you for that,
the whole week. They felt strongly enough about our program, and anybody can do that, by the way. Any of the listeners can contribute to keep this program on the air. It does cost us to keep this program on the air. So we really need people to think about that. And we have an anonymous, very generous contributor.
Absolutely.
I'm hoping he's going to come forward so that
we can mention his name on air.
I want to thank him and make sure that we're advertising Anonymous. I want you to do business with Anonymous.
Yeah.
So
right.
Anyway,
recognize Anonymous, and when you see Anonymous at the coffee shop, pat him on the back and say thank you. And you bring up a very good point. That is an open opportunity for anybody. And you don't have to be anonymous. This person is choosing, to the best of our knowledge so far, to remain anonymous. But you could promote your business, your family, your name, and get your initiatives mentioned on air all week on Voice of Geauga. So very good points there, Skip. But
that's an investment. We can drive business to your business if you're contributing. The VFW, not really a business, but if you have a business, we can help you to succeed. And just to help sponsor this program, we will work our hearts out to get drive business to your business. So it's a payback.
Absolutely, we will. Yeah, we will gladly do exactly that. There's a terrific article in the Ohio Register, and you may recognize that name from frequent guest Jeff Skinner. Jeff has created this online virtual paper, the Ohio Register. There's a great article from yesterday, as a matter of fact, June 2nd, relating to the Perry Data Center project. The title of the article is Paperless Project, Perry Village claims no documents or impact studies exist for multi-million-dollar data center deal. I'm going to quickly recap this article, but this relates to something we've been talking about fairly regularly on this show. It appears that the Perry Village officials that have signed on to this $8.4 million real estate transaction, and remember, these are the people that signed that NDA, the non-disclosure agreement, trying to keep the underpinnings of this transaction secret from the public and keep it hidden. It turns out that in an information request, Perry Village officials have declared that they possess zero written economic impact studies, project description, or internal digital communications regarding the controversial multi-million-dollar data center project slated for development on local public land. That's an example of awful. In my book, that is exactly the opposite of what clear, open, transparent government should do. And the fact that this relates to data centers, which are a huge hot button issue right now for the public, is all the more spicy. It's all the more juicy. So this, I'm sure, is going to blow back on the faces of Perry Village officials. What are you hearing about this, or your feedback, your opinions, Cole, on data centers and that type of behavior from local elected government officials?
Yeah, well, data centers are a hot button issue these days. I mean, you got AI on the rise, and you got people that don't understand it, which is most of us. And then you have people that are just trying to streamline it through and just trying to, rush it down and make it happen. But when you do that, it makes people suspicious because we want to know what it is. We want to know more about it. Why do you want this? Why do you want all this land and this and that? And then you got to worry about certain public land spaces, and worry especially about in certain places in here in Ohio, and places for farmers, and what else could that land be used for.
Right.
So it's definitely a hot button issue, and I think it's ridiculous when you're not going to be provided information about all of that. I mean, that should be very clear as day. If this data center is going to be so beneficial, then here's all the info that you need. Here's what it's going to take. Here's how much ground it's going to cover, and this is the impact of it. But if you're not getting that as a citizen or through your government, then that's a problem, and something is afoot.
Yeah, and if you ask your government and they say we just didn't bother to do it,
Yeah,
that's an outrage.
even worse.
Good heavens. So I wanted to interject that because it came up on my radar. But getting back to something you said earlier, Cole, about your struggles to get recognition from the state Young Republicans, as you were describing that, I was thinking about some of the known issues with Turning Point. So through the years, Turning Point has routinely struggled to get the approval to set up local chapters. I've mentioned before, my wife and I found ourselves in a position many, many years ago to help a Turning Point chapter get established on a local college campus. They were getting the runaround, they were getting brick walls and no's and all kinds of roadblocks to establishing. I was able to leverage some friends and contacts and turn up the heat a little bit and apply some pressure. This college eventually allowed a Turning Point chapter to start. It's my understanding that it's still operational, but that is a kind of a good vantage point for people maybe not familiar with the struggles of getting or groups and organizations like Young Republican chapters started and what that looks like. You can unfortunately get some resistance from within. And one other thing connected to that, and Cole, I'm imagining you probably know this, I've got a text exchange actually going on this morning with Brandon Rossi, who is the head of Turning Point. I think he's Turning Point Action for Ohio, or at least this region in Ohio. There is that event coming up. I mentioned it yesterday. I'm going to mention it again on July 7th at 6:30 p.m. at Top Notch Diner in Cortland, with opportunity to meet and speak with State Senator Sandra O'Brien, State Representatives Dave Thomas, Nick Santucci, and Tex Fisher. So a question for you, Cole. I think my first question is your group interacting with Turning Point or other organizations like that, which may help quickly gain some traction, some attention, recognition, and maybe even funding? And is it fair to say that some of the resistance you're meeting is similar to Turning Point's?
Oh yeah, it's definitely similar. I'm actually in talks with Brandon Rossi. We've talked before during this primary election and whatnot. So I am hoping to do some more work with him and Turning Point, and kind of combine some efforts with Turning Point and our YR group. So I will let you know when more information comes out about that, but I think they're the next group that I'm going to be communicating with, because if we're going to get resistance from the other, YRs, or, and I don't even know if it's, if it's anything on purpose, or if there's just not an organizational outreach on their part, I don't know. But, we're going to have to do what we need to do. And if that's working with Turning Point instead, or starting our own thing via, maybe a pack or something. I mean, we need some help, and we need some financial help as well, because, everything takes money. I mean, I've worked on so many countless campaigns over the last 6.5 years, and, sadly in this day and age, it takes money to run. Unless your name happens to be Trump and everybody knows you, you need some money. So I'll be working with Turning Point some more and see what we can do.
Well, I'll make you a promise on air. This is recorded, and you're hearing it here from my mouth, and I'm sure that Skip will comment as well. when that comes about and when you have events and activities organized, come to Voice of Geauga. I hope that you are a regular recurring host of Voice of Geauga, which gives you a great platform to get the message out. In addition to all the social media that you're currently doing, get it out over the airwaves. Let people know that they may have children and grandchildren who might be interested. Announce those events and let's get the message out there. That's the part and parcel. That is part of the objective of Voice of Geauga. Right, Skip?
Absolutely, and don't forget the newspaper. We're in a little bit of a delay standpoint to get into the next newspaper out, but we need contributors and articles and want to expand into classified ads, all that kind of stuff. So if there's events coming up, I'd love to know those. So Cole, if you have events, we're going to put some Destination Geauga. So shout out to Destination Geauga. I don't know if you're listening. We'd love to get some of your events at the upcoming Voice of Geauga newspaper, because the radio program and the newspaper are kind of they're different. We have different goals and objectives, but they're related. And so we can use both channels. Plus, Cole and I talked yesterday. He promised we were going to pump up our listenership on social media, so I'm hoping he's following through. But we'll have a lot of opportunity through our website and through social media channels to provide information on what's going on in Geauga County and Lake County, even northeastern Ohio.
Skip, we're coming up on a break. I need to step in. If you're interested in this conversation or have comments or questions, join us 440-946-9468. We'll come back with more on the other side of the break.
Mics are off. Mics are off.
Yeah, Gardens of CH. I think that's unfortunate, and that is a reputation and branding issue. Gardens of CH says we have no trust in our representatives and leaders. Data centers issue is an example. I do see some great signs of hope and encouragement from some, just a few, but some of the conservative, freedom-loving, conservative, we struggle for the right terminology now because a lot of it's been hijacked, but conservative Republicans within our legislature, both at the state and federal level. But the problem is they get outvoted. And if they're few and far between, those conservative voices out there willing to pound the table and take up the mantle of freedom, if they are routinely outvoted, and you see it on the county level as well. We've talked about it pretty candidly and very openly over the past several years, and Skip and I have specifically spoken on this on Voice of Geauga. At the county level, there has been a bit of a rift and pushing back toward grassroots, toward citizen communications,
30 seconds.
toward social media, and trying to interact as often and regularly as possible, and for our group to come to mean something and fight for conservative values in Geauga is surprisingly controversial. But it's a fight worth taking.
10 seconds, 10 seconds.
Welcome back to Voice of Geauga with first-time host Cole Cornell and myself, Jonathan Broadbent. Skip Claypool is on the road, headed down to Columbus to be the voice of Geauga and voice of Skip Claypool and all his years of research into NOACA to try and put some guardrails up. I look forward to future shows where Skip is able to bring us up to speed on the results of this action. That, by the way, again, for your notes, pull out a pen or text yourself like I do. It's House Bill 445. We want to be tracking House Bill 445, and hopefully it goes through and is passed. That will put some guardrails around NOACA. and protect the interests of counties like Geauga.
And let me comment on this for just a second, because you made a point, and we talked about it in the break. For those of you not on social media, you're missing a lot, because on the break we talked about the media stuff. But we talked about Republicans and conservative Republicans. There's a Republican, and then there's conservatives, and they're not the same. We have a lot of Republicans that are not conservative, and I would hesitate or even be bold enough to say they're not even Republicans. They're just running with the Republican label. I'm coming to Columbus today as a citizen on my own. I'm paying the bill. I have nobody asked me to do this. I'm just doing it. Our elected officials should be down here testifying. They should be down here defending Geauga County, because Nowaka is detrimental to Geauga County. And for Carolyn Brinke shaking her head or Jim DeVore shaking their head, I could defend that all day long. And so we should have representatives. I'm Ralph Spitaler's representative, so to speak, on Nowaka. And so I'm doing this in his stead. But we ought to have our elected officials defending Geauga County, not necessarily citizens. It's great. We should have more citizens involved. But that's the challenge we've got. We've got a lot of people who call themselves Republicans, and they are elected our representatives, but they are self-serving. They want to look for a camera, get their picture taken, and get their photos out on Facebook, and they don't really care about doing the right things to further the interest of the people in Geauga County or Lake County, or you name the county. So I get real frustrated about that. We elect people with the expectation they're going to do things, and they don't.
That's an excellent point. Do you agree,
Back
Cole?
to you, John.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a problem and a pattern that we keep seeing. People want change, people want to be heard, and they elect people to be their representatives, and then they don't see that. And then they see them all of a sudden become someone else, and it was a bait and switch. And they, want them to come back to them and, ask them about what do they want and this and that, but instead for some, it becomes a self-serving thing. So I think we definitely need more honest representation, just across our country, not only from the bottom up, but I mean, basically, we have people that are not listening to the people that put them in their positions.
And ultimately, that comes back again to the meeting that Skip referenced taking place tonight. Tonight, there is what's referred to as a reorganizational meeting, or reorg for short, of the County Republican Party. And I've said it before, I've actually been advocating for it and coaching and talking about it for 3+ years nationally. If we want accountability, if we want transparency, if we want fighters, if we want advocacy from the Republican Party, it starts local. You know the old adage, all politics is local. If we want a Republican Party to uphold conservative values, start in Geauga County. We have to put our foot down and insist on it. It doesn't mean rubber stamping. It doesn't mean giving tacit approval to waste, fraud, abuse, or snubbing we the people if they have an R next to their name. It means accountability. In my book, regardless, we have, and so I'm going to take this into a little bit of a rabbit hole, Warren, and look for Cole's feedback on this, but it's a hot button for me. There are people clearly involved in the Republican Party with the R next to their name, presenting themselves as Republican, filling elected positions, who, in any objective measure, don't belong there. We should have an apparatus in place to call them out and replace them if they are misbehaving. That apparatus is called your Central Committee. Think of it kind of like the board of directors for the Republican Party. What are your thoughts on that, Cole?
Yeah, I mean, we need more of that, and we need people to understand how that process works and how the party works. Unfortunately, the average person does not know that. They don't even know they have a county party. they don't even know what those members of that party do. So I think that's also a communications issue. But we need to get a hold on, when we have bad actors that are not acting in the interests of the party or who elected them, then yeah, there should be a process to change them and change who's in that position. So I definitely want to see the parties get stronger on this. I also want to see parties help candidates. I mean, that is the purpose in the end of a party, is to help the good candidates win, help Republicans. I worked these last two elections, and I just saw, what a contrast. And in November, everything that we did, and yet Republicans, didn't come out, and the GOP parties didn't do much. And then the Republican Party didn't really push anything, but you saw the complete opposite with the Democrats. And who came out and voted? The Democrats. So we saw a lot of GOP loss. And then this last election primary, we had more involvement, and I was happy to see at least, not from the party, unfortunately. Again, I saw the same issue with the party. But at least in this election, I saw more grassroots efforts. I saw people, your next door neighbor, that were doing door knocking, that were putting letters together, that were, knocking on doors and leaving things on the doors. I mean, that was just some local people. And then you had others that were writing to the representatives and others writing to party leaders and stuff. And you had so much involvement from the people, and they stepped up and they came to board meetings and they made their voices heard. So that was very powerful to see, and I want to help amplify their voices.
Yeah, unfortunately, in this last election cycle, we had once again an out of county dark money group putting huge money into glossy full color postcards to try and attack candidates, and created a fake slate card in Geauga County, etc. Thankfully, in Geauga County, that had almost no success, but in other areas in Lake County, I think some of their attack tactics landed, and unfortunately weeded out some really good people and put some bad people into positions of authority. But
Yeah.
so Skip has his.
I just want to make a comment on that.
Oh, sure.
In Geauga and Lake, I mean, we saw that for sure. We saw the dark money come in. I even know some of the people on that side that were a part of that, unfortunately. But we saw two different outcomes in Geauga versus Lake. In Geauga County, we mostly were able to fight that. Unfortunately, we did have some loss when it comes to that. But overall, we were able to fight a majority of those attacks back. In Lake County, we saw kind of the status quo expand. In Geauga County, we were able to fight the status quo, and we were able to win. But in Lake, unfortunately, I'm seeing the status quo get bigger.
Yeah, the status quo got bigger. It's my understanding, I think I may be the only defeat, the only victim of that dark money pool in Geauga County, which is sort of interesting and telling, since it's just a volunteer position anyway,
Okay.
not actually an elected office. But we unfortunately run out of time. I do want to touch on school boards when Cole comes back. I hope he'll come back soon. Thanks again for tuning in, everybody. Have a great day.
Mics are off. Mics are off.
All right.